Friends, this is a tribute to the finance minister and the prime minister who passed away recently. And why we decided to do is he was a leader with conscience. Beneath the benign personality, beneath the smiling personality, the quiet personality, there was a powerful person who was even respected by the presidents of US. In fact, first-hand information we have is that the nuclear deal happened only because of George Bush's enormous respect for Manmohan. In fact, the papers reveal, papers and not newspapers, but sources do tell us. In fact, in one of my interactions with a very senior diplomat some months ago, he said the Indian delegation had actually left for the airport because the nuclear talks had failed. And then George Bush said, I want to do it for Manmohan. Please call them back. So that was the respect he had. He may not have had a 56-inch chest, but then the man's silent eloquence in itself spoke volumes for him. And it's a great privilege to speak to K Bhattacharya, who has known him very closely, and also about other finance ministers. So how do you rate Mr. Manmohan Singh as a finance minister?
Well, thank you, Manoj, for having me here. Um it's a privilege to speak to an august audience like this, which is well informed, and Kerala being a land where people, every person on the street, is probably as well informed as anybody else in this world. So it's a privilege. Thank you very much for having me here. To rate Manmohan Singh is a difficult exercise because he was a multifaceted person. But since we are very beautifully named this session as a finance minister called Manmohan, I would try to, in response to your question of rating Manmohan Singh as the finance minister, I would just highlight four aspects and four qualities of him. First, what I would say is that we have to understand, as it is very common these days to say, that you must understand the chronology of events. So the chronology of events is such that till 1991, when you had Manmohan Singh as a finance minister, this country never saw a finance minister who was an economist but not a politician. Now you start with Shanmughanand Chetty, you start with John Mathai, C.D. Deshmukh, T.T. Krishnamachari, Morarji Desai. You go on like this till you come to Yashwant Sinha in 1990. And in between, I miss some names, whether it's Pranab Mukherjee or R. Venkatraman or C. Subramanian or Y.V. Chavan. You see, every name is, except probably C.D. Deshmukh, who was a technocrat but not an economist. Every other name was a practicing politician. Even Shanmughan Chetty was a member of the Justice Party. C.D. Deshmukh joined the Congress later, and even while he was the finance minister. And John Mathai was an economist, but he was a Congress member. So if you look at it, everybody was a politician, or may have been an economist as. So Manmohan Singh was the first guy who was picked up as not a politician, a technocrat right through, and also an economist. Now, why did it happen? That is the second point I would like to make. It happened because, as we all know, and the younger generation probably would not be fully aware of, India was facing an unprecedented crisis, and both on the fiscal deficit side, which is the fiscal discipline, and also on the balance of payments, which is the gap between your overall foreign exchange earning and foreign exchange expenditure. Now, the Prime Minister at the time, P.V. Narasimha Rao, had a choice. Now, at that time, when I was an active reporter in a financial paper covering the finance ministry, it was a bit like what, in today's context, most journalists did not get the name of the next RBI governor right. So at that time, including myself, and I have no hesitation in admitting it, not one of us got who would be the likely finance minister. Somebody said NKP Salve, somebody said some other minister, somebody said maybe a junior guy, but nobody thought of an economist to be the next finance minister. Narasimha Rao, as is widely known, had a choice, and his first choice was also an economist, was a man called I.G. Patel. But I.G. Patel decided not to live in Delhi anymore. As simple as that. He told the Prime Minister that, listen, I have built a small house in Baroda, so I would rather like to spend my days there. And Narasimha Rao asked him, so who do I have him? He says, why don't you get this guy called Manmohan Singh? Manmohan Singh was at that time was in Europe. He was coming back from there. And the late night he walked in. There was a call for him. He did not take that call because it was too late. Those days there was not a mobile days. But then the next day, when P.C. Alexander told him that the Prime Minister wants you to be the finance minister, he did not take him seriously. No, that's the man. And he was at that time was the chairman of the University Grants Commission. He went to his office as usual while the swearing in was happening. So a panicked prime minister called up Manmohan Singh and said that did not P.C. Alexander meet you and ask you that I want you to be the finance minister? So he very, very casually said, yeah, he did, but I thought it was not very serious. So he says, no, 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 we want you at the swearing in ceremony. And so the poor man rushed home, got suitably dressed. And those days Manmohan Singh used to dress like any other, like probably, I have been dressed, He went and wore a jacket and trousers and came and went there. And nobody, even at that time, thought that he will get the finance ministry. It was only when the Prime Minister told him that I am yet to formulate my Council of Ministers, why don't you go and start operating from North Block, which is the headquarters of the Finance Ministry. So when he walked into the North Block building meant for the Finance Minister, the penny dropped and everybody realized that the first time in history of independent India, an non-politician economist has become the finance minister. Nobody envied him. So that was the background in which he did it. I have got two more points, but I think I've taken too much of time in answering my question, but I will get back to you.
That I thought I should ask now. Do you think there was a political reason also? Because, probably was it the right time to roll out the economic policies, or was it to sort of camouflage the unrest that the country was witnessing? Why
It's a very good question that you have asked. There are two things that were happening at that time. At one level, slow easing of industrial policies had begun happening from Rajiv Gandhi's time, 1985 onwards. It was a gradual pace of, broadbanding of industrial licenses, the launch of the long-term fiscal policy, the launch of the modified value-added tax system, the setting up of Securities and Exchange Board of India, although it was not really empowered to take those decisions in the capital market. So those things were happening. Then came the crisis. So while there was a general body of opinion at that time that yes, we must do something to ease the economic policy system, to liberalize the economy, so to say, but there was no impelling reason to do so. I think the economic crisis at that time was the trigger. What happened was that because of the economic crisis, that these reforms were, were introduced. And this is the sad story of India's political economy, that when you are in a political crisis, you take the most difficult economic decisions.
Was,
So economic reforms happened, in my view, because there were the political risks were hardly anything, because the political classes were not really prepared to go in for another election. They were in the space of about 1.5 years. There were three elections, so no political leader had the money or the wherewithal to go in for another election and pull down the government.
how
So
did
whatever
the
Manmohan Singh did, Narasimha Rao did, it went through.
No, the question was, how did the bureaucracy react to it? Naturally, when you have someone who knows business, who knows the subject as your boss, naturally they were not used to this. They were sort of advising the ministers who were there before. Now here is a minister who knows the subject. So how was the bureaucracy's response to it?
Oh, his first meeting that took place immediately after the swearing in, wherein Manmohan Singh's address to the senior bureaucrats was remarkable.
Definitely, he would not have shouted and screamed. He would have spoken soft
No,
over
he,
it.
he spoke like a tough man.
Uh-huh.
He actually said, he said that the time has come to change economic policies drastically. The crisis is so huge that we cannot take decisions at our own pace. And he looked at some people who left his ministry within 6 months, that those of us here don't agree with what I want to do can let me know, and I will find them a better place. They need not be part of my team. And indeed, in 6 months' time, his finance secretary and his chief economic advisor left the finance ministry. So there was a clear toughness in him. He wanted to do those things. But there was also early signs of his understanding of the politics of the country there. He looked firm, but he also realized that 2 steps forward and 1 step backward means 1 step forward. I think that understanding he had, so which is why he did his devaluation in that manner. He almost refused to what I would call misleading his own prime minister. Although the second round of devaluation had not taken place, he told the prime minister that we have jumped, we have already done it, we cannot roll it back. On the fertilizer price hike, a steep fertilizer price hike, his prime minister asked him to roll it back. He rolled it back, but did not roll it back by the same the extent by which he had raised it. So he understood the importance. So so in the 6 months or 1 year, you will find that the finance minister's composition, the top team, had changed. He had a new economic advisor. He was not called the economic advisor. He was called the chief consultant, Ashok Desai. He came in. He had a new finance secretary economic affairs secretary in Montek Singh Ahluwalia. He had his finance secretary had left him. So he brought in and built a team, and that was probably one of the ways Manmohan Singh functioned. And I'm running ahead of the sequence. The big difference between Manmohan Singh, the finance minister, and Manmohan Singh, the prime minister, was that he had the fortune and the ability to build a team around him as a finance minister, which I don't think he had when he was the prime minister. He had some of his own men, but they were not necessarily at all the levels necessary.
When after becoming the prime minister, one of the first decisions, one of the things that he used to communicate was, reservation quota system in private industry. But he never pushed for it after that. Was it a political reason?
I think it was a political decision. He was not at all convinced about it. I think it came from the National Advisory Council. And we all know that he always paid heed to what National Advisory Council was advising him, except on two issues. One was on the question of the US civil nuclear deal. And the second was when he wanted to introduce dilute the when he wanted to dilute the rollout of the job program. Sorry, not the job program, debt waiver program. The debt waiver program was huge, but he diluted it.
Often it is said that the Congress, they wanted him as a front man to absorb all the shock, absorb all the pressure of all political and economic policies he would have rolled out. So he suffered silently. Have you ever felt that in one of any of your interactions that he was uncomfortable in that chair because of being cold, quote unquote, a puppet of the Congress
As the prime minister,
as a prime minister,
as a prime
as a
minister,
prime minister, as a prime minister?
I don't think he was uncomfortable. I think he was extremely comfortable with the thought that there was only one power center. And he knew what his position was as the prime minister. He realized that he was nominated to that job as the prime minister by the political class, which is the National Advisory Council chairperson Sonia Gandhi. So he was very, very at peace with that, that he will be able to execute certain things only if it gets the green signal from the National Advisory Council. So he had no illusions about it, and his disappointment or dissatisfaction may have been very, very personal and private, but he never let that come in the way
But
he was doing it.
isn't that a bit of a contradiction and a surprise too? Because a man who run his writ the way he wanted to change the policies, the way he wanted to remold the economics of this country, finance of this country, deciding to be a controlled with invisible strings of a political apparatus. So did he
Well,
compromise himself there?
I think he was he was of a mindset wherein he said that if I have to be bring about change, uh, he I have to do it within the current prevailing political system. Now, it's a fact that Manmohan Singh's overall assessment of what needs to be done underwent a significant change when he became the prime minister. As you would have seen, that while his economic reforms burst ended by 1993, not even 1995, which was the end of his term as a finance minister, because he realized that implementing those reforms after the Babri Masjid and Narasimha Rao becoming a little shaky was becoming difficult. So there was a slowdown in the pace of reforms after the first 2.5 years. Similarly, when he became the prime minister, he was very clear that he will have to execute different kind of policies. So what was the change? He was perfectly at peace on a policy on entitlements, policy on whether it is a right to food or right to education or right to information. So Manmohan Singh as the prime minister was a different person. And by that time, I think his understanding of the polity, the political compulsions, were even more complete than when he was in the finance minister. Actually, after the first 3 years in government as a finance minister, Manmohan Singh, I think, changed because he realized that in a governance model, he cannot always be acting as a technocrat, only as a technocrat or an economic administrator. He
So
has
that
to,
the change into a good politician, I think,
yeah,
happened when he apologized for the Sikh riots.
yeah.
From his heart, he said that what happened was against, and naturally, I don't know how the Congress would have reacted it to it then. Do you
Yes.
have any insight into that? Because the
Well,
Sikh prime minister
well,
apologizing.
I think he did not do it without the concurrence of the
So
Congress
there are some
president,
brilliant politics that was played.
because it was also at that time it was a Congress politics.
Yes.
So it happened at a time when it was politically suitable for the Congress to retreat there and make an apology. And nothing better than an apology from a prime minister who was a Sikh prime minister who represented the minority community. So I think it was politically very astute. What went wrong was later when he tried to do something at the behest of a segment of Congress politician on giving exemption to political leaders against charges and being disenfranchise them, particularly for
You can
Lalu Prasad.
elaborate on that.
Yeah.
You can elaborate on that
No,
point.
what happened was that there was this move that if you have been, indicted, or if you have been accused of any criminal charges, you lose the right to contest in elections. So I think Manmohan Singh government decided to amend the law in such a way that if you are not, if there's only an accusation but the verdict has not been passed, then the disqualification will not apply. Now, this became, and it was seen as a bailout for a Congress alliance partner, especially Lalu Prasad Yadav. So I think it became political hot potato. At some point, there was a rethink within the Congress, but Manmohan Singh had to eat crow because his proposal was seen as something that will not pass muster. And so the Rahul Gandhi came out in the open and made a public statement and said that this ordinance must be torn.
Yes.
And I think that caused a lot of hurt. Going by his personal account to what he told many of his friends, Manmohan Singh, who is not unknown to be thinking of resignations. He had thought of resigning many times in his life in different jobs. Even when he was a bureaucrat, he would often think of quitting. So a resignation as a tool, I think he has used very often. In this case also, I think he offered to resign, but I think he was persuaded to stay back.
How would you have handled that pressure? His embarrassment of a young leader openly throwing away a bill that he brought in. I think it happened in a press conference.
Yes,
It happened in a press
it
conference.
was a terrible thing.
Terrible
If you will
thing.
remember, that was the beginning of the end of the Congress UPA. It was the time when there was policy paralysis charges were there. There was the CAG reports were out in the public domain on the 2G scam, on the coal scam, and it was in that situation that Prime Minister Manmohan
Anna
Singh
Hazare movement had started, and
movement, Anna Hazare movement has started. So there was he was a beleaguered prime minister at that time. So this was one phase which you will not feel very good about a man who brought about such dramatic changes in India's
like,
economy.
why would have continued with so much of compromise, so much of heartburn, especially you know uh, such open slapping across his face? Why would have continued? Because he's a man of policies. He's a very strong man, respected for his conscience. So what would have forced him to stay back?
I think the larger political purpose that he was completely reconciled to. I think he recognized that he has taken on a role as a prime minister, and he should not let down his leader.
But he was never ambitious for a third term like the current prime minister. See, prime ministers before him and after him, they've expressed their desire to remain in power.
As somebody, as some people said that there was a thinking of changing leadership at that point in time, around sometime around 2012, just 2 years before the elections. But once again, the Congress president was not really comfortable. So I think that phase of Manmohan Singh, I would say, is something that even his best admirers don't like
Whom would
about.
he have listened to? He would have had an inner circle who would have advised him to continue or leave, right? So who were these people? The inner coterie of Manmohan Singh, lesser known.
I think his inner coterie, Manmohan Singh, actually would have had advised him to quit, but I think he ignored all that and went ahead with what the Congress president advised him
He's
for
also
stability.
criticized because he continued like that, there was the rise of NDA.
I mean, it is something that many people believe that if the policy paralysis and the indecisiveness of the UPA government in the last 3 years had not continued and had been changed into a more decisive leadership, probably the rise of India would not happen the way people believe. But I don't entirely agree with that thesis because I think the elements on the basis of which NDA rose were far more fundamental. And I think India's polity was changing dramatically. And if NDA rose, it was not because of the policy paralysis or indecisiveness of UPA, but for far more fundamental reasons of a rise of a Hindu Rashtra. The early signs of that was in the making, and I think NDA tapped into that very effectively and efficiently.
After his weakness and everything, again we saw that spark of Manmohan Singh when he came to Parliament and said about demonetization, the monumental blunder, he called it. Once again we saw that courage in his eyes and the sternness in
Well,
his voice.
that was his territory. He's apart from his U.S. civil nuclear deal and saving the government by striking a deal with Mulayam Singh Yadav and all that. I think he, uh, when he talks about economy, uh, people often forget that Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, in addition to being the prime minister, when the U.S. economy, the North Atlantic financial crisis, took over. In 2008, after the
Obama,
26/11 happened,
26.
and the North Atlantic financial crisis was having an impact on the economy, Manmohan Singh himself became an acting finance minister as a prime minister. Now, if you see the kind of steps that he took, you will be surprised to see the decisiveness with which he took not one but two stimulus measures of great economic impact, which helped reduce and confine the economic fallout of the North Atlantic financial crisis. That's number one. And a lot of people forget that 2009 January was Indian IT's biggest scandal of the Satyam scam.
Yes.
Now, that Satyam scam was handled single handedly by Manmohan Singh as the Prime Minister, who was also the Finance Minister. And he handled in consultation with his corporate affairs minister. And instead of a demand for a state led bailout, he went in for a private sector bailout through a committee of experts headed by Deepak Parekh. Now that was
HDFC.
quintessential Manmohan Singh. So even as a finance minister, prime
Prime
minister,
Minister.
when he was dealing with economic issues, he had a certain decisiveness and understanding which was unmatched. Now I think something similar happened when the demonetization took place, and he knew what is going wrong, and he came out, and most probably he must have been asked to come out with a statement, and that statement was devastating.
Devastating, yes.
Yeah.
And it really shook the NDA and
Yeah.
it triggered a thought process in the country at where are we headed for.
That's right.
So, do you think that he should always have remained as a finance minister than stepping into a prime minister's shoes?
Lot of people believe that he should have actually decided to hang up his boots and say enough. I have done everything in the field of economic policy making. 1995, goodbye. But that he did not do. And mind you, there were jobs aplenty for him in the field of economics, everything. But he did not do it. He had, as a person, he had become, I think, a practitioner of Indian politics. He not only had changed sartorially in the sense that he began dressing like a politician, but also I think he thought that his future lies in India's politics. So clearly, he changed. And I think this part of the change is not adequately understood and adequately captured even whoever has analyzed Manmohan Singh. And Manmohan Singh became a different man post 1995, and he not only he began taking active part in parliamentary committees, and he behaved like a Congress politician. So I think he decided that, no, I was a teacher, I was a technocrat, I was a civil servant, looking after economic policies. Then I became the finance minister. Now let me be a politician as well. So give the benefit of the doubt to the man.
Understandable, but still, when you're on top, you continue to play the second fiddle. That's also very confusing. Second fiddle to the UPA chairperson.
Well, it's a lot of people argue that did uh, he did play the second fiddle, but he himself believed, as I was telling you, is that in a situation the way the UPA government came, the manner in which it was formed, his being a second fiddle was obvious, because it was he was completely at peace with the idea that he is a nominated prime minister, in a sense that he did not even you know fight an election. I mean, I think he fought one election which he lost. So therefore he is comfortable with that thought. He realized that he had a role to play, and so he was not uncomfortable with that thing. So I mean, critics and analysts will say many things, and they are entitled to do that. But from his point of view, he was comfortable playing second fiddle.
Before I turn to the audience for some questions if they have, AK, how do you analyze the finance ministers of the country? Your book is all about finance ministers of the country. So how do you analyze them? Especially we are talking few days after the budget, the union budget.
I think if I look back, Manmohan Singh is clearly the best finance minister this country has seen, and I don't know whether we will see a finance minister like him in
I
future.
mean, better than Arun Jaitley,
Any day, any day.
Yashwant
I mean,
Sinha.
any day. I think any day, because the comprehensive and the holistic way in which he would understand the economic problems, and he will understand the political economy imperatives, is something that I don't think we have seen this ever. His ability to understand the government system, we have not seen it in future. I mean, I often wonder, would Manmohan Singh have presented a budget in today's context the way Nirmala Sitharaman presented? Now, I often think that what would have Manmohan Singh done? I think Manmohan Singh would have come up in today's economic challenges, would have come up with a far more comprehensive response, and he wouldn't have been constrained by his prime minister. He would have convinced the prime minister, whoever it was, because he understood. If he understood one thing well, it was economic policy making, because that is what he had been doing for the previous 40 years.
So how do you rank Nirmala? Though the question is a bit out of context here.
I think in terms of fiscal consolidation program and fiscal prudence, she is one of the better finance ministers. In terms of fiscal transparency and in accounting, she is one of the better finance ministers. Um, but she does play the role of a finance minister who also has to look after the political imperatives of the government, and which she has proved this time. A lot of people believe that if she had not done that income tax relief the way she did, probably Delhi would not have been BJP's
Absolutely.
today.
That was a forgiven conclusion that Delhi is going the BJP's way. Gentlemen, thanks for being here, and ladies, if you have any questions, is the time to raise.
Sir,
Appreciated than the quantity.
have you rate Manmohan mix, the economics of Manmohan Singh, compare it to Thatcheronomics and Bidenomics or Trumponomics? How you rate
How do you rate Manmohan
Manmohanomics?
compared to Obamonomics or
or
Trumbonomics.
Trumbonomics?
I think I would add. I don't know whether you mentioned Modinomics or not,
Yes.
but let me add Modinomics to it. I would say that Manmohanomics understood, and when I say Manmohanomics, I'm talking about his economic policies as the finance minister were initiated in response to a crisis. So it was a crisis-led policy. Uh, his true policy formulation, economic policy formulation, in a larger sense, was evident, even though he was influenced by his president, came in when he was the prime minister. So now, if you look at uh, the response to the challenges of sustaining economic growth from 2004 to 2014, I would say that his overall response is what has laid the foundations of economic policy making in the subsequent 10 years. I mean, he looked at digital public infrastructure. He looked at the direct benefit transfer scheme. He looked at right to jobs. He looked at right to education. He looked at right to food even. Now, all these parameters you see is what constitute today's Modinomics. So compare with Manmohanomics and Modinomics. I am of the view that Modinomics is standing on the good work, foundational work that Manmohanomics did from 2004 to 2012. Yes, of course, I think Manmohanomics did not make a big song and dance about its own economic policies, whereas Modinomics made a lot of song and dance about it.
Good evening, sir. Looking through, like when you look at Mr. Manmohan Singh's policies, such as liberalization, opening up the markets to foreign investments, and globalization in total, were there any major policies that Mr. Manmohan Singh wanted to implement but could not? Earlier, Mr. Manoj K. Das mentioned the quota system in private industries, but other than that, were there any other major policies that he wanted to implement but couldn't for some reason?
Very good question. I'm glad you have raised it because one of the major policy announcement that Manmohan Singh as the finance minister announced was about a labor policy change, an exit policy. He believed that he liberalized the entry of private sector into economic initiatives in a sense that he abolished licensing, he abolished trade controls, he brought down tariffs. So from the industry point of view, the entry levels were liberalized at all levels. But he did not do the exit liberalization, whether it was exiting a company or whether it was an exit for a worker. Now, an exit for a worker, and I know I am conscious that I'm talking about exit of a worker in a state like Kerala, but an exit of a worker can also be quite a painless exercise, provided you make the compulsions of an exit less painful. In a sense, they are better compensation, better retrenchment fund, and all that. I think Manmohan Singh developed cold feet very early as a finance minister, and as I was saying, that in 1992, Babri Masjid demolition of 6 December. After that, the Harshad Mehta scam in 1993. He was not the same finance minister as he was in the first 2 years. Exit policy is certainly for both labor as well as employees. That exit policy for employers came only in 2013, not 2016, with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So it came almost 2 decades later. So I think that is one failure I would say Manmohan Singh did not introduce. Yeah.
Sir, I have two questions. One is regarding when Mr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, and the second is regarding when he was the prime minister. The first question is, Mr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister Mr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister when the Congress, the government was a coalition government led by Congress. At that, the same policies, the Manmohanomics, what we call, it was implemented by the Modi government in 2014 with a more pace. Whether when that government, when the government, Narasimha Rao government, whether it was a single party government with the Congress is having an absolute majority, at that time, whether Manmohan Singh was able to implement the policies with a more pace or the desired pace? That is one question. If that, I think you are able to understand my question.
No, what I saying that if UPA, the political UPA was an alliance government.
First government, 91 to 96, the Narasimha Rao government. At that
Was
time,
also
Mr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister.
yes.
He has in the socialist economy to market economy. The India has changed.
Yeah.
Policies has changed. That he has implemented it or he has started it. But the same policies was implemented by the Modi government with a much more pace. The same policies was continued. When the 91-96 government, whether that government was having a single party government led by Congress with the absolute majority, whether Mr. Manmohan Singh was able to implement those policies with more pace or the desired pace.
No, I slightly disagree with you. I will tell you why. Because if you think that the Modi government has implemented the kind of economic reforms that Manmohan Singh had thought of in 1991 or had planned to do if he were a prime minister on his own in 2014, is different. The Modi government's economic policy vision is completely different. It is not. For example, I will tell you the differences. Modi government does not believe in a market-led economic policy. It believes in a business-friendly economic policy. And that business-friendliness results in the creation of national champions. It does not necessarily mean rules and things are changed for everybody. Rules, so therefore you have a PLI scheme. So, production-linked incentive scheme, which is meant for individuals. You come to me, make an application, there is a scheme. If I like you, if I like your proposal, it is for you. Now, that is not a true economic reform in my view. Now, the tariffs till last year were being raised. Now, that is not economic reforms. So, yes, in the first 1 or 2 years, the Modi government did come out with insolvency and bankruptcy code, real estate reforms, the GST, although it was very flawed. Then, of course, it came the mother of all disruptions, which is demonetization, which is not reform at all. So I don't think that the Modi government is a classical sense, a reformist government. It has evolved and redefined what needs to be done on economic policy reforms the way it wants to do it. It has reinvented the word called Atmanirbharata, which is self-reliance, and reintroduced a kind of an industrial policy, which is not really economic reforms. It has reintroduced the policy of national champions. So yes, the Manmohan Singh government from 2004 to 14 embarked on a different kind of economic reform strategy from the 1991 to 96 strategy. And the only reason I can give you is that 1991 to 96, there was a political compulsion. The political economy was such that if you did it, nothing would have happened to your political existence. But when from 93 onwards, when that political thing was missing, you lost steam. So that is the way I would look at it.
Do you think that current finance minister's vision regarding India being a $5 trillion economy and all is kind of blurred and far-fetched? Because if my memory serves me right, our current GDP is around 6.5. And in order to reach that $5 billion mark, you need to be at least run at 8 to 9%, which is far, far from 6.5%. So do you think that her vision is a bit far-fetched?
No, I think that as a leader of a government, there is no harm in setting goals. There is no harm in setting ambitious goals. There is no harm in setting even aspirational goals, which probably this government has done. But certainly, what you are saying, there is merit in the argument that when you set up those goals, they should be more realistic so that they are achievable. Given all the parameters that you mentioned about growth, savings, etc., it looks to me that we will be reach 5 trillion. We should have reached $5 trillion economy in 2022. That means setting of a target is probably flawed, particularly when they are so ambitious. Setting of a target in itself is not a bad idea, but they should be more realistic. I entirely agree with you there.
Thank you, AK, for this wonderful engagement with the audience. And let us all thank that man called Manmohan for bringing all of us together. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for this conversation. And listening to this conversation, I think what Dr. Manmohan Singh believed came true. History will be kinder to me. He was truly a visionary. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts. And thank you, Manoj, sir, for taking this conversation forward so effortlessly. This session was sponsored by the Muthoot Finance. And I request Sri George Jacob Muthoot, he is a group chairman, Muthoot Group of Companies, to come over the stage to present the mementos to both of them. So I request George Jacob Muthoot to present the memento to Sri K Bhattacharya. And the next memento to Sri Manoj K Das. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.